Welcome to the Labor Day long weekend here in Canada, the last weekend of summer, the last weekend before school, a joyous occasion for parents. Very long faces in this household amongst the young'uns, and more momentum, more positivity, more goals for Aston Villa, and a very professional performance at home under the lights at Villa Park. A game against Hibernian I'm not actually going to spend a whole lot of time on, only because there are so many more pressing matters to look at, including the Europa Conference League group stage draw. We now know our opponents in Group E, a very interesting and romantic group, I would say. It's also transfer deadline day as I record this. We know our Carabao Cup third round opponent, another home date, and there's this little matter of a match on Merseyside this Sunday. So let's get into it. Aston Villa 3, Hibernian 0. I had the loveliest catch-up with an old friend and colleague from the MLS days, Daniel Bettridge, who also contributes to the Under a Gaslit Lamp pod. And he's visiting in Vancouver, where he used to live, of course. We became friends because of our Aston Villa connections. He's now based in Manchester, but still regularly trains down to watch the Villa. And we were talking about how positive everything is right now and how us Villa fans tend to get a little bit ropey when things are this positive, because we are wired to believe that there is peril just around the corner. I mean, it does make me a little nervous looking around and seeing everything so buttoned up, like what kind of horrible fate is just around the corner. And I'm trying so hard to change that mindset. And you know what? So is Unai Emery. On the subject of mindset, I want to go back to the Burnley game for a quick moment because I didn't mention this at the time. But remember when Nicolo Zaniolo did not square the ball to his right to Ollie Watkins for a simple tap-in, which he probably should have because it was the better option and he had the defender for dead at this stage. Did Ollie Watkins afterwards point down to the space in front of him and scream and yell at his teammate like we've seen other strikers do millions of times before? No. Ollie Watkins actually went over to Zaniolo, patted him on the back, and helped him up. This is the family that Unai Emery was talking about. And in elite coaching circles, there's a term for this philosophy that some call the mastery motivational climate, which is opposite of the ego-oriented, results-based climate, which is what youth sports in Canada is all built around. And the idea is you have a psychologically safe environment where you support and lift your teammates up, not criticize or berate them when an error has occurred. We're not supporting a football club, my friend. What we are supporting is a cult. On to Hibs, and first of all, a little fair play to the Villa TV production of this match, because I was mildly annoyed that I was going to be charged extra on top of my Villa TV Plus subscription, but the club went that little extra mile with pre-halftime and post-match analysis hosted by the charming and intelligent Michelle Owen, who knows the game, understands the narratives, keeps things moving, and then you get a young guy like Jed Steer, just out of the game, very eloquent, along with a grizzled veteran like Alan McAnally, and then, Rigo's a very steady set of hands behind the commentary wheel. It was a great ensemble, a terrific watch, quite frankly, and good for the money. And this is my business. This is what I've been doing for 30 years, and I'm a miserable bastard who doesn't impress easily. The number one key issue for me from this game, and I'll bet you it was the number one thing Unai Emery wrote on his whiteboard in the Villa Park dressing room, was to keep another clean sheet. Yes, Fortress Villa Park was unbreached again. That's 9 straight games at home with a win and only 2 goals conceded in that time. I'm going to run out of fingers and toes, I hope. I can only get up to 21. And the players are becoming addicted to this mindset. When you think back to all the times when Villa Park could be a very toxic place, that we would be on a good little run of form, and then all of a sudden that statement game came around at home and we would stumble and fall? Well, that seems like an awfully long time ago. And Unai Emery, from the very beginning, has said we need to create this togetherness with the supporters. Well, he and his team are delivering with results and with goals. And when you are consistently dominant at home, it takes so much of the pressure off of you when you go away. Key issue number 2 was the meaningful minutes provided to some of the younger players, including Omari Kellyman. And I wondered on this program aloud, ever since I visited and saw him live at Bodymore in an academy game, whether he is the new it kid for Villa. And based on his performance and 90 minutes of it, I think there's a pretty good chance he is. And what a composed performance that was. The assist on the Bailey goal, very nearly a memorable moment in front of the Holt end where his strike went about a yard wide, which would have been something. And he also played that beautiful little split ball to Leon Bailey, which nearly became the 4-0 goal via John McGinn. This kid is 17 years of age and he's already 6'2". So he is still growing physically and he will grow in terms of footballing IQ. But what I saw and what you saw was a very composed performance. And now it's going to be interesting to see, because Unai Emery needs to trust his players with game equity. What happens next? Hard to send a kid back to academy football. That is really hard when you've gone through what he just went through. Will he play more of these kinds of games, or will they think about actually loaning him now to play more adult football? The same can be said for Seb Revan, but I think more importantly for the immediate future, John Duran. That's 2 goals in a row now at Villa Park. Imagine what that's going to do for his mindset and his confidence. And by the way, did I not say just the other day that it's the man without the ball who makes the play? And Duran made his break. Pau Torres clocked it, and what a sublime ball, inch perfect. And then against 2 defenders, on his first touch, Duran puts it in the only place in the goal that it could go to score. Sensational, quite frankly. And I know that it's still going to take time for him, but this cannot hurt. And I'm actually thinking the club has now anointed Duran as Ollie Watkins' backup. We know, he's admitted, Ollie Watkins wants to be the main man. He was happier after Danny Ings left. He wants to play all the time. And John Duran looks like he is now the backup to the main man. And yes, there's still going to be difficulty. There's still going to be growing. He's still a young guy. But I cannot help but think that 2 goals in 2 games at home is going to do him a world of confidence. And on the subject of game equity, this match offered just the tonic for players like Leon Bailey, who scored again. That's not going to hurt his confidence as we carry on through the season, and we need that player. If he comes around, what a bonus for us. The potential's been there. Is he coming around? Yuri Tielemans went 90 minutes, as many expected he would, and that's going to help him an awful lot. But the standout for me was actually Robin Olsen, who made 3 really difficult saves at key moments in the game on a terrible night for goalkeepers with a slick surface, the rain coming and going. The one he made in front of the Holt end was pretty critical after the ball was switched across. And I don't think there's ever been a question about Robin Olsen's shot-stopping ability, nor his experience. He has bags of experience. The question for Robin Olsen now, and how he will be challenged by the technical staff, is to get out of the backup goalkeeper mindset. And because we have a large array of Europa Conference League and Carabao Cup games in our future, he has the avenue to prove himself and to stake a claim for those games. And I'm feeling way less anxious about that possibility than I did even a week ago. This is more of a question from the game, but did the Hibs fans know that they were 5-bagel down at halftime of this tie and actually 7-0 down relatively early in the match? Because you couldn't tell based on the ruckus they were creating at Villa Park. I mean, this was absolutely sensational. It's all I heard. And so I don't go to Villa Park all the time. I'm asking you, in the last 10 years, where does this rank in terms of away support? Because I think it's got to be right up there. This was class. Now let's get to the really fun, interesting and exciting part of this Europa Conference League journey. Let's call it a Europa Conference League adventure, because it is a completely separate challenge and campaign than the Premier League, which will see us playing every 3 to 4 days starting around about September 21st. So less training, more games. That's what players want. That's what Unai Emery wants. And I was imagining, as all these names were being pulled from the pots, Unai's analysis team scurrying off to their secret layers to start gathering analysis, statistics, and video on all these future opponents. Our group really has a little bit of everything. Alkmaar, the Pot A team, sort of like the seeded one. North Amsterdam, very, very cool place. Good cheese and a very difficult away test. Then our turn came from Pot B, and if Thursday is anything to go by, then European nights are going to be very special at Villa Park. Legia Warsaw is the traditional powerhouse of Poland, and they've found their way recently. That's also going to be a stiff away test, but maybe the most romantic pick from our group, the champions of Bosnia from Mostar, and it is a beautiful place. 9,000 seat stadium. Not sure how allocation is going to work, but I actually worked with somebody who was not far from there named Vedrana Mihailovic, and she always said, "Oh, Peter, it's a beautiful place, and it looks it." And the one thing that all these cities have in common, none of them around with their beer. Now, with more games comes the need for a bigger and hopefully better squad. And I'm recording this show with lots of hours left before the transfer window officially slams shut. I'm going to a friend's place tonight. We're having a boys' night, and I simply could not wait until the official deadline closes, which means we're probably going to, for the first time ever, land a major fish right at the end. But Clément Lenglet is a smart piece of business under the circumstances. Already knows Monchi. In fact, they already had discussions at the beginning of the summer. So this is not some kind of impulse, Benderac type decision. This is, again, strategic and a fantastic insurance policy for Tyrone Mings. Another left footer, 300 games under his belt as a 28-year-old. And he completes the French connection of Kamara and Dean, which is also not a bad thing. I don't know how anybody can look at this deal and not say this is a very smart piece of business. The window as a whole was simply outstanding for Aston Villa. Please name me a better summer transfer window than this one just passed, because not only did we bring in quality that upgraded our squad, which is the whole point, players Unai Emery wanted, and he got them early, but they also seem like players that could still appreciate in value over time. We also moved on some players, some of whom had difficult contracts and situations, players we've tried to move on before, so we've cleared some space. And in the case of the young and high potential youth players that we sold, we negotiated buyback clauses, which gives us a little bit of insurance that if they turn out to be great, we could try to get them back. I know that was a tricky part because we wanted a really long buyback window. The buying clubs obviously did not. But keep in mind, we're getting Jacob Ramsey and Alex Moreno back sometime after the international window, and that will be like 2 new signings. Did I want one last player coming in that could score goals for sure? Yes, of course. I bet the club did as well. In fact, that may still be happening. And if it does, I'll include it in the Liverpool show. The Carabao Cup third round draw was completed on Wednesday. We were all stunned and amazed that Aston Villa was not drawn away to Old Trafford. VAR still reviewing that draw. No, this year it's Crystal Palace that gets the honor of traveling away to Manchester United and getting screwed over by a terrible refereeing decision that will see them out in that round. No, we got Everton at home, which is an excellent draw. And I'm not going to disrespect the opponent, but unlike, say, Doncaster Rovers, we now have to prepare thoroughly for this match. Not that Unai Emery wouldn't have, but you know what I mean. And our record against Everton of late doesn't hurt effort either. I love the fact that there are so many all Premier League matchups in this round, which is great for the competition if you get through them. The best of the bunch probably being Newcastle hosting Manchester City. That could be very interesting. So September 26th, a Tuesday, very busy week. Toffees come to Villa Park, and that's after a visit to Chelsea on the weekend and before we host Brighton the following weekend. And ironically, it's Chelsea and Brighton facing each other in the third round of the Cup. And finally, a big, proper test faces us on Sunday as Villa travel to Anfield. And really, the biggest question that everybody wants to know, will the trains be running? Paul Hansaker is scheduled to go with his dad, Ron, the chairman, and a lot of people from the Liverpool office, so a big entourage. I'm hoping the trains run because I'm expecting Paul will have some video from Anfield this weekend. By the way, Paul just came back from his vacation from Cyprus. If you are planning to go to Cyprus, I'd wait a couple of weeks for them to restock their liquor. Paul, by the way, is looking for people. This company is just booming right now, which means there are some really good career opportunities. And if I can vouch for Paul Hansaker, I'm going to tell you this flat out. Paul takes care of his people. It's a good company to work for. So if you're in the trades, or if you're an obsessive, detail-oriented administrative type that likes to make sure things are accurate on forms, etc., I'm going to put Paul's email in the description, and I think you should reach out because it is a company that is moving right now. As for the match itself, this may sound strange, but I would much rather play a Liverpool team that somehow, with 10 men, managed to overcome a 1-0 deficit at Newcastle and win at St. James's Park again in remarkable circumstances. I don't know if you watched it, but Darwin Núñez, where was that Darwin Núñez last year? It was an incredible spectacle. And by the way, Alisson made a remarkable save on Almiron to keep it at 1-0, and Newcastle had other chances to put that game away. So imagine, given the circumstances of the Van Dijk sending off, had Liverpool not overcome that 1-0 deficit and lost, imagine the state they'd be in. I'd always rather play the happy team on a high rather than the angry team on a low. The suspension to Virgil van Dijk and the injury to Ibrahima Konate is going to cause a problem for Jurgen Klopp in this game, and I'm sure Unai Emery has already spent a ton of time downstairs in the Bodymore Heath laboratory trying to figure out how to make life absolutely miserable for whoever plays center back for Liverpool on Sunday. Ollie Watkins seems to love this fixture, and apart from the penalty miss last year, you'd expect he's going to have a couple of chances, but somebody needs to step up and play the role of Jacob Ramsey this year because he was sensational at Anfield in this fixture last year. And I know I'm recording this hours before the transfer deadline is closing, but Mo Salah was the subject of a $150 million bid, apparently from Saudi Arabia, where he would be a king. And I know Jurgen Klopp is saying, no, we're not selling him, but I just wonder at some point if the Fenway Sports Group goes, yeah, we're going to take that. If it goes higher, for example. So we'll wait and see, but you wonder how he's going to be. And I think the biggest issue for Aston Villa in this game is to stop Liverpool's wonderful array of attacking players. Because that midfield of theirs is very talented, but also brand new, frankly. Our midfield is settled, and that's usually where the game is won and lost. And you know what? Here's where that experience of getting bombed at Newcastle 5-1 may come in handy. Yuri Tielemans said after the Hibs game, that loss at St. James's Park and the performance was a wake-up call, and he was not ready to make excuses about the circumstances around the game and losing two key players within 48 hours. I simply cannot see Aston Villa going to Anfield and conceding two sloppy goals within 16 minutes. I can't see us conceding 5 goals in a game again for the rest of the season. It's all about how you respond, how you evolve, how you grow. And that feeling from that game will be embedded into the players' psyches. So let's see how they respond and let's see whether they can keep what's happened since going. And I've said this on the show numerous times as well. Boy, going into an international window can be dramatically different depending on which side of the scoreline you're on. I know fall doesn't officially arrive until the equinox, which is usually round about September 21st, which is our first Europa Conference League group game, but the evidence of the oncoming autumn is everywhere. The sunflowers and the corn very high. That morning mist fog is starting to creep in on mornings. And as much as this was a spectacular summer, an all-timer for me, honestly, I'm mourning the loss of this past summer. I absolutely love autumn. I love watching the villa on a crisp autumnal morning. I love roast dinners. I love youth football. My son's mob is back in action. We're training again. I'm coaching their team. And I could make the case that we're actually entering the greatest time of the year, quite frankly. But let's not get there yet. Let's savor the dying embers of the summer and relish how great a time it is to be an Aston Villa fan. And until Liverpool, and as always, up the mighty Villa.